0 to 1, Notes on Startups, or How to Build the Future by Peter Thiel. Summary and Analysis by Brevreds. Introduction, Building the Future, One Step at a Time. Imagine a world where every new business simply follows the same rules, where innovation is just a series of predictable improvements, and where the only goal is to be a little better than the competition. Sounds pretty dull, right? Now imagine a world where bold ideas thrive, where the goal isn't just to improve, but to create something entirely new, something that changes the way we live, work, and connect with each other. That's the kind of world this book invites you to explore. 0 to 1 is all about this shift, from making incremental improvements, going from 1 to 1.1, 1.2 and so on, to making bold leaps going from 0 to 1. It's not just about starting a business. It's about creating a future that's different from the present, about challenging the conventional wisdom and asking, what if we could do things entirely differently? Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, an innovator, or just someone who's curious about how the world's most transformative companies are built, this book is your guide. It's not a step-by-step manual, but rather a new way of thinking about the future and your role in shaping it. Instead of competing with existing companies and products, it's about finding ways to create something so unique that it stands alone, where your only competition is your own vision. You'll hear stories of success, failure, and the wild paths that some of the world's most innovative companies have taken. You'll learn why copying others is a dead end, and why it's the companies that do something completely new that make the biggest impact. From technology to business to human ambition itself, 0 to 1 challenges you to think big, question the status quo, and build something that truly matters. The essence of this book lies in the idea that progress isn't automatic, it requires vision and action. While some people see the future as a distant, abstract place, others see it as something they can shape through innovation. And shaping the future doesn't mean playing by the rules of the present. It means breaking out of the mold, finding new paths, and asking questions that others might not even think to ask. So, what does it take to go from 0 to 1? It takes a mindset shift, a willingness to take risks, and the belief that the future can be more than just a continuation of the past. It's about embracing the unknown, even when it's uncomfortable, and being willing to bet on ideas that others might dismiss as impossible. The journey won't be easy, no great journey ever is. But it's the kind of challenge that has the potential to change the world, or at the very least, change your world. Ready to take that first step? Let's dive in and discover how to build the future, one bold idea at a time. Chapter 1, The Challenge of the Future. Imagine this. You're staring at two options. The first option is like copying a homework assignment, repeating something that already exists. That's what it means to go from 1 to N. You might make something a little better or a little different, but it's essentially the same as what's already out there. Now, the second option, it's like creating a brand new puzzle no one has solved before. This is 0 to 1, making something unique, something that's never been seen. Peter Thiel emphasizes how this leap from 0 to 1 is the heart of every breakthrough innovation. Think about the first iPhone. Before 2007, phones were mostly about calls, texts, and the occasional game of Snake. But the iPhone reimagined the whole idea of what a phone could be, putting a tiny computer in everyone's pocket. It wasn't just a better phone, it was an entirely new category of product. A deep dive into PayPal's early days. One of the most telling examples of this 0 to 1 thinking comes from the story of PayPal, a company Thiel co-founded. PayPal didn't start out as the company we know today, but rather as an idea to transform how people exchanged money on Palm Pilots, yes, those ancient gadgets. Back in 1999, Palm Pilots were the new tech craze, and Thiel's co-founder Max Levchin had a vision to enable money transfers between these devices. It didn't work out quite as planned. After months of tinkering and thousands of dollars, the team realized that Palm Pilots just weren't catching on like they had hoped. They could have pivoted slightly and tried to improve the product, but that would have been like taking a step from 1 to N. Instead, they aimed for 0 to 1 by completely rethinking what they wanted to achieve. What if, instead of limiting themselves to Palm Pilots, they could enable digital payments on the broader internet? This new focus led to the birth of PayPal as we know it. The journey wasn't easy. Competitors like X.com, Elon Musk's early online banking venture were cropping up, and PayPal struggled with fraud, hackers, and customer acquisition. But they pushed through, solving each problem by coming up with creative, first-time solutions. For instance, they launched a referral program where users earned $10 for signing up and $10 for referring a friend. The program seemed expensive, but it created a viral loop that helped PayPal grow from a niche service into a giant. It wasn't just a tweak, it was a radical new way of acquiring customers online, going beyond simple competition. Now, think about Thiel's idea of competition. He argues that fierce competition can destroy the very thing it's meant to improve. Take the story of the airline industry. Airlines often compete by slashing ticket prices, but that means they barely make any money. Despite being an essential part of global transportation, airlines have a notoriously low profit margin. Some make just a few dollars per passenger after expenses. Compare this with Google, which essentially created its own market with search engines. Instead of getting caught up in a race with competitors, they built something no one else had and dominated the space. Thiel's point is that creating something brand new is often more profitable than fighting over a piece of an existing pie. Google, PayPal, and even the iPhone are all examples of companies that went for something entirely new instead of playing by old rules. So, what does that mean for you? If you want to build something truly impactful, don't just ask, how can I do this better than others? Ask, how can I make something entirely new? It's not about joining the race, it's about making your own game. Chapter 2. The Power of Monopoly. Monopoly, just the word sounds negative, doesn't it? It brings to mind images of giant corporations crushing little businesses and hiking up prices. But here's a twist. In the world of startups, monopolies aren't just good, they're necessary. Thiel argues that the most successful companies are those that create a monopoly by doing something so unique that they're the only ones who can offer it. Google's secret sauce, creating a monopoly through search. Let's take a deep look at Google. In the late 1990s, search engines were everywhere. Yahoo, AltaVista, and Ask Jeeves were fighting for attention. But Google didn't just want to join the battle. They wanted to redefine how people thought about finding information online. Instead of cluttering their site with ads and portal features like other search engines, they focused on a clean, simple interface with one powerful tool, a search box. And beneath that simplicity lay an innovative algorithm called PageRank. PageRank was a game changer. Unlike other search engines that ranked pages based on simple keyword matches, Google's algorithm analyzed the web as a network. It considered how many other websites linked to a particular page, treating those links like votes of confidence. The more votes a page had, the more relevant it appeared. This approach made search results far more accurate and relevant than anything else at the time. In 1999, Google wasn't making money yet. Venture capitalists were puzzled. Why invest in a search engine that wasn't generating revenue? But Google's founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, had a long-term vision. They knew that if they could dominate the search engine space with unmatched quality, they'd eventually figure out a way to monetize it. By 2003, that plan took shape through Google AdWords, a revolutionary advertising system that paired ads with search results based on users' queries. AdWords wasn't like other online ads, which cluttered up web pages. Google's ads were relevant, targeted, and subtle. This combination of superior search quality and a new way to monetize created an unbeatable advantage. Google became a monopoly not because they muscled out competitors, but because they built something that no one else could replicate. Monopoly versus competition, a restaurant story. To understand the difference between monopolies and competition, think about two kinds of restaurants in a small town. The first restaurant is one of many pizza places. The owners compete fiercely with other pizza joints, trying to offer discounts, special toppings, and promotions to attract customers. But in the end, everyone's offering the same product, pizza. The competition keeps prices low, but it also means no one makes much profit. Now imagine a different restaurant in the same town. But this one offers a completely unique type of cuisine. Maybe it's the only Ethiopian restaurant in town. There's no direct competition. People seeking that particular dining experience can't find it anywhere else, so they come to this one place. This restaurant doesn't have to slash prices to compete with others. Instead, it can focus on quality and charging a fair price. This is how a small monopoly operates. It's not about exploiting people, but about offering something special that others can't easily imitate. The same principle applies in the tech world, only on a much larger scale. When a startup carves out its own space, it can thrive without constantly battling rivals. This isn't about becoming a monopoly through ruthlessness. It's about creating something so new and valuable that it stands alone. Elon Musk and Tesla, a different kind of monopoly. Now, let's take a closer look at Elon Musk and Tesla. Back in 2004, electric cars were seen as a joke. They were clunky, had poor battery life, and barely went fast enough for highway driving. But Musk saw an opportunity that others missed. He believed that electric vehicles, EVs, could be the future, but they needed to be sexy, high performance, and have a long driving range. Instead of trying to compete directly with car giants like Ford or Toyota, Tesla went in a completely different direction. Their first car, the Roadster, was a high-end sports car. It wasn't cheap, but it was fast and had a long range, something no other electric car had achieved before. It made a statement. EVs didn't have to be boring or weak, they could be luxurious and high performance. This approach drew the attention of affluent early adopters who were willing to pay a premium for a car that was both environmentally friendly and exciting to drive. Tesla wasn't trying to capture the entire car market right away. They focused on a niche, building their brand and technology slowly. Eventually, they used the profits and technological advances from the Roadster to create more affordable models like the Model S and Model 3. But throughout this journey, they remained in their own lane, building a brand around the idea of high-quality electric vehicles, not just trying to compete on price or volume with gas-powered cars. This strategy allowed Tesla to build a kind of monopoly in the luxury EV market. For years, if you wanted a premium electric vehicle, Tesla was the only game in town. That gave them the time and resources to improve their technology, build a massive battery factory, and even create a global network of charging stations. By the time traditional car manufacturers like Ford and GM started making their own EVs, Tesla already had a huge head start. They had created a market that didn't exist before, which made them the leader by default. What does this mean for you? If you're starting a new business or looking to build something innovative, the lesson is clear. Don't focus on fighting over what already exists. Instead, look for a way to create something brand new. Find that unique offering that only you can provide, and focus on building a monopoly around it. It's not about squeezing out competitors. It's about being so different that people can't help but come to you. Chapter 3. All happy companies are different. Thiel makes a bold statement. All happy companies are different because they solve a unique problem. This means that every successful company has found a way to stand out by solving a problem in a way that no one else can. The key is to do something so distinct that people see you as irreplaceable. Case study: Facebook's rise from a college dorm to global dominance. To truly grasp this, let's take a closer look at Facebook's early days. Back in 2004, Mark Zuckerberg and a few of his college roommates created the Facebook. At first, it was just a digital version of Harvard's printed student directory. Something students used to look up each other's photos and details. This wasn't a new idea. MySpace, Friendster, and other social networks were already out there. But Facebook became something unique, something that students couldn't resist using. Why? Facebook was exclusive. In its early stages, you could only join if you had a college email address, which made it feel like a special club just for students. This exclusivity created a buzz among college campuses, and students wanted to be a part of it. Unlike MySpace, where anyone could join and create chaotic profiles full of loud music and flashy backgrounds, Facebook offered a clean, streamlined experience. It didn't feel like a place for everyone, it felt like a place for people like you. As Facebook expanded to other Ivy League schools, then to universities across the country, it slowly opened up to the public. But that early foundation gave it a sense of community that other platforms lacked. By the time it became available to everyone, Facebook was no longer just a social network, it had become the social network. The idea of a social platform wasn't new, but Facebook's way of fostering connection was. Facebook's unique approach to building an exclusive and focused community helped it become a monopoly in the social networking space. It wasn't just about offering a place to connect with friends. It was about offering the best place to do so. And as more people joined, the network became more valuable. The more friends you had on Facebook, the less likely you were to switch to another platform, even if a new one came along. This network effect created a self-reinforcing cycle that made Facebook's position almost unshakable. PayPal's war against fraud, a battle few others could fight. Another great example is the struggle PayPal faced against fraud. Back when PayPal was trying to become the internet's go-to digital wallet, online payment fraud was rampant. Every day, scammers and hackers tried to exploit the platform, setting up fake accounts and making unauthorized transactions. For a small startup with limited resources, this could have been a death sentence. But instead of folding under the pressure, PayPal used the challenge as an opportunity to build something no other company had. They developed some of the first sophisticated fraud detection algorithms that analyzed user behavior in real time. The system would flag unusual activity patterns, like a user suddenly sending a large amount of money to a foreign account, and stop transactions before they could be completed. One of the most memorable battles involved a wave of fraudulent accounts from the former Soviet Union. At one point, scammers were exploiting PayPal's user sign-up bonuses, using automated scripts to create thousands of accounts, each pocketing a small cash reward. PayPal's team worked around the clock to develop countermeasures. They set up systems that could detect these automated scripts and blocked accounts that matched suspicious patterns. It wasn't just a technical battle, it was a high-stakes chess game, where PayPal had to stay one step ahead of sophisticated criminals. This effort wasn't just about fixing a bug, it was about turning a potential weakness into a competitive advantage. PayPal became known as the most secure way to make payments online. By tackling the fraud problem head-on, they developed a level of trust with their users that other payment platforms struggled to match. And this trust became a key part of PayPal's monopoly in the digital payment space. A different kind of energy company, the story of SolarCity. Now, let's turn to the story of SolarCity, another venture that tackled a problem in a new way. In the 2000s, solar power was considered a great idea that just wasn't practical for most homeowners. Solar panels were expensive, and the average person didn't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to install them on their roof. The founders of SolarCity, Lyndon and Peter Rive, along with their cousin Elon Musk, saw this as an opportunity. Instead of focusing solely on selling solar panels, SolarCity developed a new business model. They would install solar panels on customers' roofs for no upfront cost. Customers would sign a long-term lease, paying a fixed rate each month that was often lower than their old electricity bill. This approach removed the biggest barrier to adoption, the high initial cost, by turning solar panels into a service rather than a product. People could now go solar without breaking the bank. This model was revolutionary. It allowed SolarCity to expand rapidly, as homeowners jumped at the chance to save money while using clean energy. And because SolarCity managed the installation, maintenance, and financing, they were able to control the entire customer experience. By the time traditional utility companies started to catch on, SolarCity had already built a strong brand and established a significant market share. The company faced challenges along the way, from fluctuating government incentives to competition from other solar startups. But its unique approach to financing and customer acquisition allowed it to carve out a space that others couldn't easily replicate. SolarCity wasn't just trying to be another solar company. They were trying to change how people thought about energy. What can you learn from this? The secret to building a successful business isn't about doing the same thing better than everyone else. It's about finding a problem that no one else has solved well, and tackling it in a way that makes you irreplaceable. It's about thinking beyond the obvious and looking for the gaps that others miss. By focusing on what makes you unique, you create something valuable that stands out in a crowded market. Chapter 4: The Last Mover Advantage. You've probably heard the phrase, first mover advantage, the idea that being the first to market gives you a head start. But Thiel flips this on its head with a different concept, the last mover advantage. Being the last one standing, dominating your market for the long term is often more valuable than just getting there first. It's not about racing to be first, it's about building something enduring that continues to thrive when the dust settles. Case study: Amazon, building an empire one book at a time. Think of Amazon in its early days. Jeff Bezos didn't set out to create an online bookstore just because it seemed like a cool idea. He saw a bigger opportunity. He wanted to dominate the emerging e-commerce space. But instead of trying to sell everything from the start, he focused on books. Why books? They had thousands of titles, were easy to ship, and weren't bound by physical store space. In 1994, when Amazon launched, online retail was still in its infancy. Competing against physical bookstores like Barnes & Noble and Borders seemed daunting. But Bezos wasn't looking to compete on their terms. Instead, he offered something new, a seemingly limitless inventory that could be delivered to your doorstep. This was during a time when ordering a book online felt like magic. Books that local stores might not carry were suddenly a click away. Amazon's model was simple but powerful. By keeping its focus on a single product category, books, they could invest in infrastructure and logistics to make the online experience seamless. And once they had mastered the art of selling books online, they expanded to other product categories: DVDs, electronics, toys, and eventually everything under the sun. But Amazon's real secret wasn't just in expanding its product catalog, it was in the investments that didn't pay off immediately. Take Amazon Prime, for example. When it launched in 2005, it seemed almost foolish. Free 2-day shipping for a flat annual fee? Analysts questioned the economics behind it. But Bezos had a long-term vision. He knew that if people saw shipping as free, they'd buy more. Amazon Prime wasn't just about faster delivery, it was about building customer loyalty. And it worked. Prime members started buying more frequently, making Amazon their go-to for online shopping. Over time, as other e-commerce players fell away or remained niche, Amazon became the last mover in online retail. They didn't just benefit from being first, they benefited from continuously improving until no one could catch up. This persistence allowed them to build an infrastructure, like fulfillment centers and Amazon Web Services, that made it incredibly difficult for new entrants to compete at scale. Case study: PayPal's shift to the last mover in online payments. PayPal's path to becoming the dominant online payment processor was filled with twists and turns. When PayPal started, it wasn't the only player in the online payment space. In fact, there were a number of competitors, including X.com, founded by Elon Musk, who would later merge it with PayPal. But the early years of online payments were like the Wild West. Fraud was rampant, and consumers were hesitant to trust sending money through the internet. PayPal initially focused on payments for eBay transactions. At the time, eBay was full of people buying and selling second-hand goods, but payment options were clunky. Buyers would have to mail checks or money orders to sellers, who would then wait for the payment to arrive before shipping the item. PayPal offered a solution that was fast and convenient, making online transactions smoother and safer. But to truly dominate, PayPal had to outlast its competitors. They had to survive countless technical challenges, fraud attacks, and regulatory hurdles. One of the most intense periods was the war with eBay's in-house payment system, BillPoint. BillPoint had the advantage of being tightly integrated with eBay's platform. But PayPal had something that BillPoint lacked: customer loyalty and a better user experience. PayPal's founders, including Peter Thiel, focused on improving their product's usability, security, and speed. They knew that if they could win over eBay users, they could survive long enough to become the default payment method. They also took the risky step of offering monetary incentives to users who referred others to join PayPal. This viral loop helped them grow quickly, as each user who signed up brought in more. Eventually, eBay realized that BillPoint couldn't compete with PayPal's user base and functionality. In 2002, they purchased PayPal for $1.50 billion. This acquisition cemented PayPal's position as the leader in online payments, effectively making them the last mover in that space. While many other online payment startups fizzled out or pivoted to other markets, PayPal remained the default choice for digital transactions, a position it continues to hold. The importance of building moats, Google against Bing. One of the critical aspects of becoming a last mover is creating a moat around your business. A moat is what keeps competitors from copying what you do, even when they try. Google's story provides a perfect example of this. Google was not the first search engine, but they became the last mover in search because they built a massive moat around their business. In 2009, Microsoft launched Bing, hoping to challenge Google's dominance. Microsoft invested heavily in advertising, pushing Bing as a viable alternative. They even introduced some features that Google didn't have at the time, like visual search options. Despite all this, Bing struggled to make a significant dent in Google's market share. Why? Google had already built an ecosystem that was hard to replicate. They had a decade's worth of user data that made their search results more accurate and relevant. Their advertising system, AdWords, was tightly integrated with the search engine, making it more appealing to businesses looking to reach potential customers. Plus, Google had invested in a culture of constant innovation, with new features and services like Gmail, Google Maps, and YouTube reinforcing their brand as more than just a search engine. The moat Google built wasn't just about having better algorithms. It was about owning the infrastructure, having the best data, and creating a brand that people trusted. Bing's efforts, while respectable, were always playing catch-up, and this is why Google remains the last mover in search. What does this mean for you? It's not enough to be first to market. Building a sustainable business means thinking long-term and creating something that can endure. Focus on how you can improve over time and create advantages that make it hard for others to catch up. Create something that outlasts trends, changes in technology, and shifts in consumer behavior. By being the last mover, you ensure that your business doesn't just make a splash, it becomes the ocean. Chapter 5: Monopoly is the goal. Thiel argues that achieving a monopoly is the key to building a truly successful company. Unlike what many might think, monopolies aren't inherently bad. They allow companies to innovate without the pressure of constant price competition. When a company owns a market, it can focus on creating new products and offering better services. Let's dig into some stories of companies that built monopolies, each in their unique way, and see how they achieve this dominance. Case study: Google's quest for search supremacy. Imagine it's the late 1990s, a time when search engines were popping up left and right: Alta Vista, Yahoo, Lycos, and Ask Jeeves. Searching for something online was like wading through a swamp, and the results often weren't what you were looking for. It was a frustrating experience. Then came two Stanford students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who thought they could make it better. They started with a simple idea: rank search results based on how many other websites linked to them. The logic was that if a page was linked by many others, it must be important. They called this algorithm PageRank, and it became the core of Google's search engine. The results were astounding. When people used Google, they found what they were looking for faster, and it made a world of difference. But Google's rise wasn't just about having a better algorithm. They built a system that kept getting smarter the more people used it. Every search made their results more accurate because they could learn from user behavior. What links people clicked, how long they stayed on a page, and what they searched next. Competitors like Yahoo and AltaVista couldn't keep up because they lacked this level of feedback. Google's edge in data allowed them to build a better product with every search. Google also made smart business moves. In 2000s, they introduced AdWords, a way for businesses to advertise alongside search results. Unlike the clunky banner ads of the time, AdWords allowed advertisers to pay for clicks rather than just impressions. It revolutionized how advertising worked online. Businesses of all sizes, from a local flower shop to a big car manufacturer, could reach their target customers directly. AdWords became a cash cow, funding Google's growth and helping them invest in new technologies, like mapping the world with Google Maps and acquiring YouTube. With each new product, Google built out its ecosystem, making it harder for users to leave. Their focus wasn't just on making search better, but on making Google synonymous with the internet. Even when competitors like Microsoft with Bing tried to challenge their position, Google's dominance in data and user behavior kept them at the top. They became the last mover in search, creating a monopoly that still exists today. Case study: Tesla's electric path to market control. Elon Musk didn't invent the electric car, but he knew how to make it cool, desirable, and most importantly, viable as a business. Before Tesla, electric vehicles (EVs) had a reputation for being slow, clunky, and unappealing. Companies like General Motors had tried and failed to create consumer interest with models like the EV1 in the 1990s, which ended up being a commercial flop. Tesla, however, took a different approach. Instead of starting with an affordable electric car that might not perform as well, they aimed for the high-end market. Tesla's first model, the Roadster, wasn't meant to be a mass-market car. It was expensive, flashy, and fast, showing that electric cars could be both environmentally friendly and incredibly cool. By targeting wealthy early adopters, Tesla created a brand that people wanted to be associated with. Think of it as the iPhone of cars. The Roadster gave Tesla credibility, but it was their next car, the Model S, that cemented their position. The Model S had a longer range than any other electric vehicle on the market and could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds. It was a car that could compete with any high-end gasoline vehicle in both performance and style. This wasn't just a win for Tesla. It was a message to the entire automotive industry that electric cars could be a legitimate competitor. Tesla also made a bold move that many saw as risky. They built their own charging infrastructure. At the time, the lack of charging stations was a major barrier to EV adoption. So Tesla started building supercharger stations across the United States, Europe, and beyond. This allowed Tesla owners to travel long distances without worrying about finding a place to recharge. By controlling the charging experience, Tesla turned one of the biggest EV pain points into a competitive advantage. When traditional car manufacturers finally started taking electric vehicles seriously, Tesla had already built a loyal customer base, a recognizable brand, and an infrastructure that made their cars more practical. Even as giants like Ford, GM, and BMW launched their own EVs, Tesla's position as the leader in the space remained solid. They weren't just an automaker, they were a technology company that was changing how people thought about transportation. Tesla didn't just enter the market, they redefined it, creating a monopoly over the mind share and perception of electric cars. Case study: Apple's world of devices. Apple's path to dominance is a textbook example of how to create a monopoly through innovation and design. In the late 1990s, Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy. The company's products were seen as overpriced and out of touch. Then Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997 and turned everything around, starting with a focus on simplicity and design. In 2001, Apple released the iPod, a small device that allowed users to carry thousands of songs in their pocket. MP3 players had existed before, but the iPod was different. It was easy to use, beautifully designed, and came with iTunes, which allowed users to buy songs for 99 cents. This integration of hardware and software created a seamless experience, and Apple quickly took over the portable music market. The iPod wasn't Apple's endgame, though. It was a gateway device that introduced millions of new customers to Apple's ecosystem. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone, a device that combined a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator into one. It wasn't the first smartphone, but it was the first one that people truly wanted. The iPhone's touch interface, sleek design, and access to the App Store made it a game-changer. The App Store became a goldmine. Developers flocked to create apps, and users downloaded millions of them. With each app added, the iPhone became more valuable to users. It wasn't just a phone, it was a platform. By controlling the hardware, software, and app ecosystem, Apple made it nearly impossible for competitors to match the iPhone's user experience. This integration extended to other products like the iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, and AirPods. Each product worked seamlessly with the others, creating a world where once you owned one Apple product, you were likely to buy another. This was the power of the Apple ecosystem, a self-reinforcing cycle that kept users within its walls. Even though companies like Samsung, Google, and Huawei have tried to compete with their own smartphones and tablets, Apple's focus on user experience and brand loyalty has kept them at the top. The result? A monopoly over a specific kind of consumer. A consumer willing to pay a premium for products that work perfectly together. What can you learn from this? Creating a monopoly isn't about crushing competition with shady tactics. It's about building something so different and valuable that people can't imagine living without it. It's about being the best at what you do and creating a space that others find difficult to enter, whether through data, design, or infrastructure. The companies that thrive for the long haul are those that build moats around their businesses. Focus on what makes your product or service irreplaceable, and you'll build something that lasts. Chapter 6: Building the Future and Knowing How to Sell It. Creating a product or a service is only half the battle. Knowing how to sell it is the other half. Many great products have failed because their creators couldn't figure out how to market them effectively. Sales is not just a skill for a chosen few. It's a necessity for anyone who wants to change the world. The ability to sell your vision, your product, or even yourself is what sets apart those who make a lasting impact from those who don't. Case study: PayPal's viral growth strategy. Before PayPal became the giant it is today, it was a startup with a big problem. How do you get people to trust an online payment system they've never heard of? In the early 2000s, people were cautious about putting their credit card information online, and getting them to sign up for a new service seemed like a tough sell. PayPal knew they needed to get people using the service before they could make any money. They needed a way to build trust quickly and incentivize users to adopt their platform. So, they came up with a bold strategy. They paid people to sign up. At first, every new user who joined PayPal got $10 just for opening an account, and they could get more money by referring friends. It was like a digital gold rush, with people signing up in droves and telling everyone they knew about this free money. The beauty of this strategy was that it created a network effect. As more users signed up, it became easier for others to use PayPal because their friends and family were already on it. The small payment was a short-term cost, but it helped PayPal reach critical mass. With more users on the platform, it became more valuable for merchants to accept PayPal as a payment method. And suddenly, PayPal wasn't just a novelty, it was becoming the standard way to pay online. At the same time, PayPal made sure that the product worked seamlessly. Transactions were fast, secure, and easy to navigate. They knew that if they could make the initial experience good, people would keep coming back. By the time eBay bought PayPal in 2002, it had grown to millions of users, and the platform had become synonymous with online payments. This strategy might sound costly, but it was a calculated bet that paid off. PayPal understood that it was more important to focus on growth and user acquisition than to turn a profit right away. They made sure to balance their marketing tactics with a product that was easy to use and worth sticking around for, creating a strong foundation for future growth. Case study: Airbnb and the art of storytelling. Airbnb's rise is another tale of selling a vision and getting people on board with something that seemed impossible. When Airbnb started, convincing people to let strangers stay in their homes, or to stay in a stranger's home, was a huge challenge. It seemed risky, awkward, and frankly a little weird. Who would ever want to do that? Yet today, Airbnb is a household name with millions of listings worldwide. The founders, Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecharczyk, realized early on that they weren't just selling a place to stay, they were selling an experience. Their breakthrough came when they started focusing on the idea of belonging. They created a story around the idea that staying in someone's home offered a richer, more authentic travel experience than staying in a hotel. It was about meeting locals, living like a local, and seeing places through a different lens. But it wasn't just the story they told that mattered, it was how they told it. The founders would personally visit hosts, take professional photos of their homes, and write compelling descriptions to make each listing feel inviting. They made sure that every host felt like a partner in the journey, which helped build a strong sense of community among the early adopters. Airbnb also leveraged data to improve its platform. They noticed that professional photos led to more bookings, so they set up a program to provide free photography services to hosts. This small change had a big impact. It made the listings look more appealing and professional, making travelers more comfortable with the idea of staying in a stranger's home. It was a way of building trust without directly saying, "Trust us." When Airbnb expanded internationally, they faced a whole new set of challenges. Different countries had different cultural attitudes towards sharing personal space, and in some places, short-term rentals faced regulatory hurdles. The team had to adapt their message and approach to each new market. In places where trust was harder to build, they leaned even more on stories from hosts and guests to show the human side of the experience. By emphasizing the emotional connection of their service and tailoring their approach to different markets, Airbnb didn't just change the travel industry, they redefined it. They sold an idea that seemed strange at first, but became incredibly compelling once people saw the benefits. It's a reminder that selling a new concept often means showing people not just what they can have, but how it can change their lives. Case study: Tesla's battle for consumer trust. Elon Musk's journey with Tesla wasn't just about building great electric cars, it was about changing public perception around electric vehicles, EVs. In the early days, people thought EVs were nothing more than fancy golf carts, slow, limited in range, and not suitable for long drives. Musk knew that if Tesla was going to succeed, he had to change that perception. Tesla focused on making their cars high-performance vehicles that could compete with any gas-powered car on the market. They didn't just want to make an electric car, they wanted to make the best car. When Tesla launched the Model S, they offered test drives that highlighted its incredible acceleration and sleek design. These test drives were eye-opening for many people, shattering their assumptions about what an electric car could be. But Musk also knew that selling the idea of electric cars required more than just showing off a fast car. It required addressing people's anxieties about battery range, charging times, and the availability of charging stations. Tesla made a bold move by building a network of supercharger stations, allowing Tesla owners to travel long distances without worrying about running out of battery. This infrastructure investment sent a powerful message: Tesla was here to stay, and they were committed to making electric cars practical for everyday use. Tesla also created a strong brand around innovation and environmental responsibility. Musk often spoke about the need to transition to sustainable energy, framing Tesla as a company that was fighting for the future of the planet. This narrative appealed to a broader audience, including those who might not have been car enthusiasts, but were drawn to the idea of making a positive impact on the environment. To make it even more compelling, Tesla leveraged their customers as their best advocates. Early adopters were enthusiastic about the product, often sharing their experiences on social media and helping to spread the word. Tesla didn't spend much on traditional advertising. Instead, they let the product and their passionate customer base do the talking. This grassroots approach to marketing helped Tesla build a loyal following and created a sense of community among Tesla owners. What can you learn from this? Sales and marketing are not about tricking people into buying something they don't need. It's about showing them why what you're offering is valuable, sometimes even before they realize it themselves. If you believe in what you're building, share that passion. Use stories that resonate with people's lives, address their concerns, and show them a future that they want to be a part of. Selling is about making people see the world in a new way, and helping them understand why your product is part of that vision. Chapter 7: Secrets to Monopoly: Why Competition is for Losers. A common belief is that competition is the essence of a healthy market. Yet, to build something truly transformative, you don't want to just compete, you want to create something so unique that you have no competition at all. This chapter is all about how to identify opportunities where you can create a monopoly, a market where your product or service dominates so thoroughly that it stands apart. Case study: Google's journey to market dominance. Google's story is often told as one of genius innovation and relentless execution. But what set Google apart wasn't just being the first search engine, it was the ability to make their product the default choice in the market. Before Google, there were plenty of search engines: Yahoo, AltaVista, and many others. But these early competitors made one critical mistake: they tried to be everything at once. Yahoo, for example, positioned itself as a portal, offering everything from news to email services to weather updates. The search function was just a small part of a much larger experience. Google took the opposite approach. Founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin focused on creating the best search engine, period. They poured their efforts into developing an algorithm that could provide more accurate and relevant search results, using something they called PageRank. It ranked pages based on the number of other sites that linked to them, making it much better at understanding what users were looking for. But simply having a better algorithm wasn't enough. Google needed to find a way to monetize without cluttering the experience with banner ads like other search engines did. They came up with AdWords, a system that let advertisers bid on keywords to display ads alongside search results. It wasn't intrusive, and the ads were directly related to what users were searching for, which made them much more effective. The strategy worked, and as more users flocked to Google because of its clean, focused approach, advertisers followed. Google quickly became synonymous with search, effectively creating a monopoly. No one else could compete with the scale of data they had collected, which allowed them to continually improve their algorithm. As they grew, they used their search dominance to expand into other areas like mapping, email, and video with YouTube. Their success didn't come from competing on every front, it came from creating a product so superior that users couldn't imagine using anything else. Google knew that by dominating search, they could build a fortress around their market position, and from there expand into new territories. By making themselves indispensable in one area, they gained leverage in many others, turning what started as a simple search tool into a tech giant. Case study: Apple's ecosystem monopoly. When Apple released the first iPhone in 2007, it changed everything about how people thought of mobile phones. But Apple's true genius wasn't just creating a groundbreaking phone. It was in building an ecosystem that made it nearly impossible for users to leave once they entered. Apple's strategy wasn't to compete head-to-head with other smartphone manufacturers, it was to create a product and a user experience that no one else could match. The iPhone's hardware was beautiful, sure, but it was the software that set it apart. Apple controlled the entire experience, from the hardware to the iOS software, making the user experience seamless and polished. When Apple launched the App Store, they created a platform that allowed third-party developers to build apps, but Apple still maintained strict control over the ecosystem. This was a smart move. It meant that Apple could ensure the quality of apps while taking a cut of every sale. But the real magic of Apple's strategy came when they expanded the ecosystem to include other products like the iPad, Apple Watch, and MacBooks. Everything worked together effortlessly. If you had an iPhone, getting a MacBook or an iPad made sense because they all synced with each other perfectly. Apple created a network effect with their own devices, making it more convenient for users to stick with Apple rather than switch to another brand. Apple's walled garden approach meant that even though they didn't have the largest market share in every category, they had an extremely loyal user base that valued the seamless integration of their devices. And that loyalty translated to pricing power. Apple could charge premium prices for their products because users felt they were paying for an experience that no one else could offer. By focusing on creating an ecosystem rather than just competing on specs, Apple was able to create a kind of monopoly over their own customer base. People who bought one Apple product often ended up buying several more, each one locking them further into the ecosystem. This wasn't about outdoing the competition in a crowded market, it was about building something so different and cohesive that it stood apart from everything else. Case study: SpaceX, escaping the trap of government contracts. SpaceX is a prime example of breaking into a market that seemed impossible to disrupt. When Elon Musk founded SpaceX, the space industry was dominated by a few huge players that relied on government contracts to keep their businesses going. The cost of launching a satellite or a rocket was astronomical, and the idea of a private company doing it seemed absurd. But Musk wasn't interested in competing for the same pie. Instead, he aimed to create a completely different approach to space travel, one that focused on reducing costs dramatically. SpaceX developed reusable rockets, a concept that had been considered unfeasible for decades. By making rockets that could land themselves and be reused, they were able to cut down the cost of launches significantly. The real challenge, though, was convincing governments and companies to trust a private startup with their satellite launches. SpaceX didn't try to win over their competitors' clients immediately. Instead, they focused on proving that their technology worked. In 2008, after a series of failed attempts, SpaceX successfully launched its Falcon 1 rocket into orbit. It was a turning point. Suddenly, people began to take them seriously. SpaceX's strategy was to make themselves indispensable by focusing on cost efficiency and technological innovation. Over time, they became a critical partner for NASA, winning contracts to resupply the International Space Station. But unlike traditional aerospace companies, SpaceX wasn't content with just being a contractor. Their long-term vision was to make space travel affordable and eventually send humans to Mars. They weren't just competing for contracts, they were creating a whole new market for private space exploration. By focusing on a goal that was larger than just making money, SpaceX was able to carve out a niche that no one else could compete with. They transformed the perception of what a private space company could do, and built a business that thrived by doing things differently. What can you learn from this? Creating a monopoly doesn't mean shutting down competitors. It means making yourself so indispensable that no one else even comes close. Find the area where you can be the best, where your product or service is not just another choice, but the only choice that makes sense. Focus on creating something that others can't easily replicate, and build a moat around your business with customer loyalty, innovative features, or a unique vision for the future. It's not about competing harder, it's about finding your own game to play. Chapter 8: The Power Law: Why Winners Take All. In any field, from venture capital to sports, success isn't evenly distributed. Instead, it follows what is known as a power law, where a small number of winners reap outsized rewards, while the rest are left with much smaller outcomes. This chapter delves into how understanding the power law can reshape the way you approach business, investments, and even your life decisions. Case study: venture capital, finding the next big thing. When people think of venture capital, they often imagine investors spreading their money across dozens of startups and waiting to see which ones succeed. But the truth is that in venture capital, a few investments drive almost all the returns. Most startups will fail, a few will do okay. But one or two will become unicorns, startups worth $1 billion or more, and pay back all the losses while delivering huge profits. Consider the story of Peter Thiel's investment in Facebook. Back in 2004, Facebook was a tiny social networking site used mainly by students at Harvard. Peter Thiel saw potential in the way Facebook was gaining traction among students and decided to invest $500,000 for a 10% stake in the company. At the time, other social networks like MySpace and Friendster were already popular, and it wasn't obvious that Facebook would stand out. But Thiel understood the power law. The possibility that Facebook might become the dominant social network was worth betting on, even if the odds seemed slim. This single investment turned out to be one of the best decisions of his career. As Facebook grew from a campus social network to a global platform used by billions, Thiel's initial stake became worth billions of dollars, delivering returns that dwarfed all his other investments combined. This wasn't just luck, it was a strategy that embraced the power law. Rather than diversifying into dozens of startups and hoping for average returns, Thiel bet on the one company that had the potential to become a category-defining success. And this is what makes the venture capital world tick, finding the few companies that can deliver outsized returns, rather than focusing on spreading risk evenly. In the world of startups, the power law isn't just about the returns on investment, it's also about how companies grow. The companies that win tend to do so by orders of magnitude more than their closest competitors. Facebook didn't just beat MySpace, it became the defining social network of its generation. Google didn't just become another search engine, it became the way people find information online. The power law means that the difference between a great company and a good one can be exponential, not linear. Case study: YouTube, from startup to video behemoth. When YouTube was founded in 2005, there were already video sharing platforms like Google Video and Vimeo. But YouTube quickly gained traction because it made uploading and sharing videos simple. The founders, Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Jawed Karim, had a vision to make video sharing accessible to anyone, and they knew that ease of use would be the key to their success. At the time, sharing video online was clunky and slow. Uploading a video required special software, and watching it often meant dealing with buffering issues. YouTube solved these problems by making uploading as easy as a few clicks, and by streaming videos in a way that adapted to users' internet speeds. It wasn't the first platform to try this, but it was the first to get it right. YouTube's growth was explosive. Within a year of its launch, it was serving 100 million videos per day. Google, seeing the potential, acquired YouTube in 2006 for $1.65 billion, an amount that seemed extravagant at the time. But this acquisition turned out to be a classic example of the power law in action. Google Video never took off, but YouTube became the go-to platform for online video, eventually reaching billions of users. Today, YouTube is an indispensable part of the internet, generating billions in ad revenue and shaping popular culture. For Google, the investment in YouTube has paid off many times over, making it one of the most valuable acquisitions in tech history. This is the essence of the power law. One huge success can more than make up for many failures. Case study: Pixar, from near failure to animation giant. Pixar's story is a testament to how a single breakthrough can transform an entire industry. In the 1980s, Pixar wasn't the animation powerhouse we know today. It was a small company struggling to sell computer graphics hardware and software, barely making enough to stay afloat. Steve Jobs, who had recently been ousted from Apple, bought a majority stake in Pixar, hoping it would become a successful hardware company. But the hardware business was a flop, and Jobs ended up investing millions of his own money just to keep Pixar from going bankrupt. Everything changed when Pixar decided to shift its focus from hardware to making animated films. In 1995, they released Toy Story, the first feature-length film entirely made with computer animation. Toy Story was a massive hit, both critically and commercially. It grossed over $360 million worldwide, and proved that audiences were hungry for a new kind of animated storytelling. The success of Toy Story turned Pixar into a powerhouse almost overnight. They followed up with other hits like Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and Monsters, Inc. Each new film was a box office success, and soon Pixar was the gold standard for animation. For Steve Jobs, Toy Story and Pixar's subsequent hits represented the power law in action. His investment in Pixar finally paid off, making him a billionaire again even before he returned to Apple. By betting on Pixar's potential to revolutionize animation, Jobs turned a struggling hardware company into a cultural icon. It was a classic example of how a single massive success can eclipse years of struggle and failure. What does this mean for you? The power law shows up in many areas of life. If you focus on finding the few things that can yield outsized results, you'll be better positioned to succeed than if you try to spread your efforts evenly. It's not about working harder across the board. It's about finding the areas where your effort can create a breakthrough. For instance, in your career, instead of trying to be competent at a dozen things, focus on becoming exceptional at one or two things that matter most. In relationships, instead of trying to please everyone, invest in the few relationships that bring the most meaning to your life. And if you're starting a business, look for opportunities where you can become a market leader, even if it means taking risks on unproven ideas. Understanding the power law isn't about avoiding failure. It's about recognizing that when the right opportunity comes along, it can more than make up for all the failures that came before it. Seek those rare opportunities where you can make a huge impact, where your efforts can multiply and lead to exponential results. Conclusion: taking your first steps toward building the future. As we wrap up our exploration of 0 to 1, it's clear that the path to innovation and meaningful change requires more than just understanding concepts. It demands action. Now that you've learned about the principles of going from 0 to 1, it's time to put this knowledge into practice. Here are some actionable steps you can take to start building your own future. 1. Identify your unique perspective. Reflect on your interests and experiences. What insights do you have that others may overlook? Write down your thoughts on problems you see in the world. These could be areas where you believe change is needed, or opportunities that others aren't pursuing. Engage with diverse groups of people to gain new perspectives. Their insights might spark ideas that you hadn't considered. 2. Embrace risk and uncertainty. Start small by taking calculated risks in your daily life. Whether it's trying a new hobby, proposing a bold idea at work, or making a significant change in your routine. Understand that failure is a part of the journey. Learn from it and iterate. Each setback can be a stepping stone toward your next breakthrough. 3. Focus on creating, not competing. Instead of looking at what others are doing, focus on what you can create that's new and different. This could be a product, service, or even a way of thinking about a common problem. Consider how you can offer a unique solution to a problem or need that isn't being met by existing options. 4. Cultivate a growth mindset. Adopt a mindset that embraces learning and improvement. View challenges as opportunities to grow and develop your skills. Surround yourself with individuals who inspire and challenge you. Seek mentors who can guide you and offer valuable feedback. 5. Develop a prototype or minimum viable product (MVP). Once you have a solid idea, create a basic version of your concept. This doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be functional enough to gather feedback. Share your MVP with friends, family, or a select group of potential users. Use their feedback to iterate and improve your idea. 6. Build a network of support. Connect with like-minded individuals who share your vision for the future. This can be through local meetups, online communities, or social media groups focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. Collaborate with others to leverage their skills and perspectives. Sometimes, combining forces can lead to more significant breakthroughs than working alone. 7. Stay curious and keep learning. Continuously educate yourself about your field and related industries. Read books, attend workshops, and follow thought leaders to stay informed about trends and innovations. Cultivate curiosity by asking questions about the world around you. Challenge assumptions and seek to understand how things work at a deeper level. 8. Set clear goals and take action. Define specific, measurable goals for your journey. Break these down into smaller, achievable steps that you can tackle on a daily or weekly basis. Create a timeline to keep yourself accountable. Regularly review your progress and adjust your goals as needed. 9. Reflect and iterate. Take time to reflect on your experiences and the progress you've made. What worked well? What could be improved? Use these reflections to refine your approach. Don't be afraid to pivot if your original idea isn't gaining traction. Flexibility and adaptability are key to navigating the unpredictable landscape of innovation. 10. Be persistent. Remember that building something great takes time and perseverance. Keep pushing forward, even when faced with challenges or setbacks. Celebrate your small victories along the way to maintain motivation and remind yourself of your progress. By following these steps, you'll not only embrace the principles of going from 0 to 1, but also take concrete actions toward creating something unique and impactful in your life and the world around you. The future is not something that simply happens to you, it's something you can actively shape. So get started today. Your journey from 0 to 1 begins now. Thank you for completing another BrevRead video. Like and subscribe to see more of our videos. If you have a particular book that you would like us to summarize, please share it in the comments section below.